Love, dreams, and sacrifice are the foundation of Sumit Singh and Jenny Slatten's life. Known worldwide from the show 90 Day Fiancé, they were never just another television couple. They were two people who fought against distance, culture, age, and society to be together. After years of saving and sacrifice, Sumit and Jenny invested their life savings, about $1 million, into building a restaurant. Through hard work and dedication, they ran it successfully. But tragedy struck yesterday afternoon when a fire broke out at the restaurant. Jenny was trapped inside and suffered severe burns over nearly half her body. She is now in the ICU, fighting for her life. Sumit has been left broken, fearing for his wife and watching their dream turn to ashes. The family has suffered a financial loss of about $1.5 million. On one side, Jenny battles for survival. On the other, the restaurant they built with love and effort is gone. What was once their dream now lies in ruins. This is the heartbreaking story of Sumit and Jenny, a love tested by fire, a dream destroyed, and a future uncertain. To understand the weight of this tragedy, we must first know how their dream began. Sumit and Jenny were no strangers to challenges. Their love story on 90 Day Fiancé was one of the most talked about romances on reality television. They faced criticism because of their age gap, cultural differences, and family disapproval. But through it all, they stood together. Their dream was never about fame or luxury. It was about creating something lasting, something that proved love and hard work could build a future. That dream took shape in the form of a restaurant. They saved relentlessly. They cut down expenses, lived modestly, and put aside every possible dollar. Over time, they collected $1 million, their entire life savings. Jenny once told her friends, "This restaurant is more than just food. It's our love served on a plate." When the doors finally opened, it felt magical. The restaurant was not just a place to eat, it was an experience. Jenny welcomed customers with her warm smile, while Sumit worked tirelessly behind the scenes. The menu was a blend of Indian traditions and American flavors, representing their unique bond. The walls were decorated with photos of their travels and memories from the show. Customers felt like part of their family. The community embraced them with love. Soon, the restaurant became a local favorite. Reservations were full, reviews glowing, and for the first time in years, they felt success. They had built something beautiful. But every dream begins with a vision, and bringing that vision to life is never easy. Finding the right location was the first challenge. For months they searched, visiting properties that were either too small, too expensive, or falling apart. Then they found it, a large corner property in a lively neighborhood. The building was old and broken, but Jenny saw potential and Sumit saw home. They signed the lease and poured everything into it. The renovation was exhausting. Walls had to be rebuilt, the kitchen redesigned, permits obtained, and furniture purchased. Bills piled up, and friends warned them they were risking too much. But they were determined. Jenny spent nights designing menus while Sumit dealt with contractors. They argued and cried, but they never gave up. When the restaurant was finally ready, it was breathtaking. Warm lights, elegant tables, and a gleaming kitchen set the stage. But what made it special was the story behind it. They named it S&J's Kitchen, proudly carrying both their identities. On opening night, the restaurant was packed. Customers were excited not only for the food, but to meet the couple whose love story they had followed. The menu reflected their lives together, Jenny's apple pie beside Sumit's buttered chicken. Guests loved it. That night, Jenny whispered to Sumit, "This is it. We did it." He held her hand, smiling, and for that moment nothing else mattered. They weren't just reality stars anymore. They were entrepreneurs, dreamers, and true partners. But the early days were far from easy. Success doesn't happen overnight. Suppliers demanded payments before deliveries. Staff needed training. Menus had to be adjusted, and mistakes were made. Some nights, the restaurant was half empty. Jenny would sit in the office, exhausted, and whisper, "Did we make the right choice?" Sumit, just as tired, would reassure her, "We did. We just need to hold on." And they did. Slowly, word spread. Customers praised the food, the atmosphere, and especially the couple themselves. Reviews appeared on local blogs calling it a true gem and a love story served on a plate. Fans of 90 Day Fiancé traveled from other states just to dine there and take selfies with Sumit and Jenny. Free publicity on social media boosted the restaurant further. Within a year, S&J's Kitchen transformed from a risky gamble into one of the most loved restaurants in the neighborhood. Families celebrated birthdays there, couples went on dates, and tourists added it to their lists. Jenny often walked through the dining room with a smile, chatting with customers. People loved her personal touch. In the kitchen, Sumit worked tirelessly to ensure every dish carried not just flavor, but love. The financial strain eased. Debts were paid off, and the restaurant began turning a profit. Their $1 million risk was finally rewarding them. Jenny would often say, "I can finally sleep at night knowing we built something real." For them, success was not only measured in money, but in pride. Then came the tragedy. Just when life seemed stable, the fire erupted, destroying everything they had built. Jenny was caught inside and suffered life-threatening burns. The restaurant, their dream, was gone. The community that had celebrated their journey now mourns with them. What was once a story of triumph has turned into a test of survival. Jenny lies in the hospital, fighting for her life, while Sumit struggles with heartbreak and loss. Their restaurant, once full of laughter, food, and love, is reduced to ashes. Their $1 million dream now feels like a cruel reminder of how fragile success can be. But even in tragedy, their story remains one of love and resilience. They showed the world that dreams can be built through sacrifice and dedication. And though the future is uncertain, the love that brought them this far still burns brighter than any fire. They had built something no one believed they could. Every night when they locked the doors, they felt stronger, prouder, and more connected. The restaurant wasn't just a business to them. It was like their child, their creation. The future seemed bright, but none of them knew that a storm was quietly approaching. Life often gives moments so perfect that you forget how fragile they are. For Jenny Slatten and Sumit Singh, the days before the tragedy were some of the happiest they had ever lived. The restaurant was thriving. Tables were booked weeks in advance. Food critics praised their unique mix of flavors, and their names, once known only from reality television, were now spoken with respect in the culinary world. Jenny loved walking into the dining hall during the lunch rush, hearing laughter, the clinking of glasses, and the steady hum of conversations. It gave her joy to see people making memories in the place she and Sumit had built. Sumit, meanwhile, was always in the kitchen, focused and determined. He had grown into his role as head chef, blending Indian spices with Jenny's American favorites. Butter chicken sat alongside apple pie, samosas paired with cheesecake, each dish telling the story of their love. Together, they had created not just a restaurant, but a heartbeat in the community. On weekends, families lined up outside. Tourists came after hearing the buzz online. Some fans even flew across the country to meet them. They took photos, asked for autographs, and told them, "You too inspire us." Jenny and Sumit often sat together at night after closing, speaking quietly about the future. Jenny would say, "Maybe one day we'll open a second branch." Sumit would smile and answer, "One dream at a time, my love." They were happy. They were proud. And they began to believe that their struggles were finally behind them. But fate has a cruel way of striking when it is least expected. While Jenny and Sumit were living in the glow of their success, no one could have imagined the nightmare waiting around the corner. A storm, a fire, a disaster that would destroy everything. On October 3rd, the day began like any other. The restaurant opened at noon, filled with the smell of spices and fresh bread. Customers arrived quickly, filling every table. Jenny moved from table to table, laughing and smiling, while Sumit stayed in the kitchen, calm and focused. Everything seemed perfect, but fate never gives warnings. Around 3:45 p.m., staff in the back kitchen noticed something unusual, a faint smell of burning wires. At first, they thought it was just an overheated pan. But within minutes, smoke began to rise from the storage room. One of the waiters shouted, "Fire!" Panic broke out instantly. Alarms rang. Customers screamed. Chairs fell. Plates shattered as people rushed to escape. In the chaos, Sumit pushed his staff out first, shouting again and again, "Get everyone outside. Hurry." His heart was pounding, but his mind was clear. Everyone had to get out. But where was Jenny? Jenny had been helping an elderly couple in the far corner. She stayed behind, guiding them towards safety. By the time she turned around, the fire had spread fast, fierce, and unstoppable. Thick smoke filled the dining hall. Flames licked along the walls, devouring everything. Jenny coughed violently, her eyes stinging from the smoke. She tried to reach the exit, but fire blocked her path. Outside, Sumit scanned desperately, shouting her name. "Jenny! Jenny!" His voice cracked with fear. Smoke poured out of the windows, and still he could not see her. Then he heard her voice, faint and trembling, calling his name from inside the blaze. His blood ran cold. Firefighters had just arrived with sirens wailing, but when Sumit tried to run back inside, neighbors and staff held him back. "You'll die if you go in," they shouted. Tears streamed down his face as he fought against them. Inside, Jenny was pressed against a wall, shielding herself from the heat. Flames had caught her clothes. She screamed in agony, her voice piercing through the chaos. 2 firefighters stormed in with oxygen masks. They found her unconscious, burned, her breathing shallow. With all their strength, they carried her out. Her skin was scorched, her body trembling with each weak breath. Sumit fell to his knees when he saw her. His wife, his partner, was unrecognizable, covered in burns. Paramedics rushed her into an ambulance. Sumit climbed in beside her, holding her hand, whispering through tears, "Stay with me, Jenny. Please stay with me." Behind them, S&J's kitchen collapsed into flames. The $1 million dream they had built was reduced to ashes. The community stood in shock, watching as firefighters battled the inferno. The restaurant was gone, and Jenny's life was hanging by a thread. Inside the burning restaurant, time had slowed for Jenny. One moment she was guiding customers, and the next she was wrapped in black smoke. The exit was only a few feet away, but flames sealed it off. Every breath felt like fire in her chest. Her eyes watered, her throat burned, and her legs grew heavy. She could hear people outside shouting, plates breaking, and Sumit's desperate voice calling her name. But her strength was fading. She pressed against the wall, trying to protect herself, but the fire was faster. It crawled up her clothes and seared her skin. She screamed, the sound raw and heartbreaking. She thought of Sumit, of their love, of all they had built. Not like this, she thought. Her body trembled. She whispered softly, "Please, not now. I can't leave him yet." Darkness began to close in. At that moment, firefighters burst through the smoke and found her. "We've got one," they shouted. They wrapped her in fire-resistant blankets and carried her out. Jenny's skin was blistered, her face pale, but she was alive. She caught one last glimpse of the restaurant as flames consumed it. Her heart broke, not only for herself but for the dream she and Sumit had poured their lives into. Outside, she collapsed into Sumit's arms. He wept uncontrollably, whispering, "Stay with me, Jenny. Please don't leave me." Jenny, barely able to speak, whispered faintly, "I'm sorry. I tried." Then her eyes closed. Paramedics rushed her into the ambulance. Sirens screamed as the vehicle sped through the streets. Nearly half her body was burned. Her skin blistered, her breathing shallow. Paramedics worked frantically. "We're losing her pulse," one shouted. They strapped an oxygen mask to her face, inserted 4 drips, pushed adrenaline and fluids. Beside her, Sumit sat frozen, gripping her hand, his tears falling onto the blood-stained sheets. He whispered again and again, "Stay with me, Jenny. I can't lose you now." His mind raced through memories. Their first meeting, the battles they fought for love, the nights of laughter in the restaurant. And now here she was, fighting for her life. The ambulance tore through the city. Cars pulled aside. People stared as the flashing red lights passed. Every second felt like a battle against time. At the hospital entrance, doctors and nurses were waiting. The doors swung open, and Jenny was rushed out on a stretcher. Sumit tried to follow, but a nurse stopped him. "Sir, you can't go in. Please wait here." He begged, "That's my wife. Please, I need to be with her." But the doors closed. He collapsed onto a bench, burying his face in his hands. His sobs echoed through the hospital. Strangers looked on in silence, some offering comfort, others too stunned to speak. Inside the ICU, doctors worked tirelessly. Jenny's fight for life had only begun. Tubes, machines, monitors, all focused on one fragile body. Jenny's heart struggled, her lungs fought, her body trembled under the weight of the burns. The lead doctor whispered to his team, severe burns 45%. This is critical. Hours passed for Sumit. Each minute felt like a lifetime. He paced the halls. He prayed. He whispered her name into the silence, hoping somehow she could hear him. Finally, a doctor stepped out, his face grim. Sumit rushed forward, his heart pounding. Please, tell me, is she alive? The doctor sighed, placing a hand on his shoulder. She's alive, but barely. The next 48 hours are critical. We'll do everything we can, but it's up to her strength now. Sumit's knees gave out. He sank to the floor, tears streaming down his face. His wife, the love of his life, was lying behind those ICU doors, fighting the hardest battle of her existence. And outside, the ashes of their restaurant still smoldered, reminders of a dream destroyed in the blink of an eye. This was no longer just a fire. It was a war between life and death. The battle had only just begun. Jenny Slatten's body lay still in the intensive care unit. Judes connected her to machines that breathed for her. Monitors beeped with every fragile heartbeat, and doctors surrounded her bed with masks and gloves, fighting desperately to keep her alive. Nearly half her body was burned. Skin grafts would be necessary. Infection risk was high. Every minute brought new complications. Doctors whispered to each other in urgent tones. Stabilize her pressure. We need more fluids. Prep for emergency grafting. If she doesn't respond, they knew this was no ordinary patient. Jenny wasn't just fighting for survival. She was fighting after enduring unimaginable pain. Meanwhile, outside the ICU doors, Sumit Singh sat motionless on a chair, staring at the floor. Hours passed, but he couldn't move. His hands trembled. His eyes were red from endless tears. Friends tried to comfort him. Neighbors offered prayers. Fans who heard the news online sent messages of support, but Sumit barely noticed. His entire world was behind that glass window. He replayed the moment in his mind. The smoke, the fire, Jenny's scream. The image of her burned body haunted him. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw it again. At one point, a nurse came out to update him. She said softly, she's in very critical condition. The next few hours will decide if her body can handle this. Sumit nodded, but his heart shattered. He whispered almost to himself. She's strong. She has to be. Jenny, you can't leave me now. Inside the ICU, Jenny's body trembled under the machines. She was unconscious, but in her mind, flashes of memories played. Her first meeting with Sumit, their wedding, the laughter inside the restaurant. Somewhere deep inside, her spirit was fighting. The doctors worked tirelessly through the night. Burn treatments, oxygen, pain management, monitoring organ functions. The room was filled with urgency, but also with determination. Back outside, Sumit pressed his forehead against the cold glass of the ICU window. He whispered through tears, please, God, take everything else, but don't take her. Hours felt like years. The sterile hallways echoed with silence, interrupted only by the steady rhythm of machines keeping Jenny alive. And then, just before dawn, a doctor emerged once again. His expression was serious, but his words gave the faintest spark of hope. She made it through the night. It's still dangerous, but she's fighting. Sumit collapsed into tears, his hands covering his face. For the first time since the fire, a small glimmer of light pierced the darkness. But the doctor warned him, this is only the beginning. The recovery, if she survives, will be long, painful, and uncertain. You must prepare yourself. Sumit nodded, though his voice broke. When he replied, I don't care how long it takes. I'll be here every step of the way. As long as she's alive, that's all I need. Inside the ICU, Jenny's chest rose and fell with the help of machines. Her body was broken, but her spirit, though fragile, was still holding on. The battle wasn't over. It had only just begun. For Sumit Singh, life had always been about resilience. He had fought against traditions, against family pressure, against the judgment of the world just to be with Jenny. But nothing had prepared him for this. As he sat outside the ICU, hours turning into days, the weight of reality began to crush him. His wife, his partner in love, in life, in business, was clinging to life inside those cold, sterile walls. His dream, the restaurant they built together, was nothing more than ashes and rubble. And his savings, every last cent of their $1 million investment was gone, swallowed by the flames. In a matter of hours, everything he had spent years building had been ripped away. Soon it began to unravel. He stopped eating. He couldn't sleep. His eyes were hollow, his voice shaky, his body trembling from exhaustion and grief. Nurses urged him to rest, but he refused. He stayed by the ICU doors, waiting, watching, hoping for a miracle. At times, he broke down completely. He would bury his face in his hands, whispering Jenny's name over and over like a prayer. At other times, he would stare into the distance, lost, empty, unable to comprehend how life had changed so brutally. Friends visited, bringing food and words of comfort. Some family members called, telling him to stay strong. Fans sent thousands of messages online praying for Jenny's recovery, but none of it could ease the pain. Late one night, a close friend found him sitting on the hospital floor, his back against the wall, tears streaming silently down his face. When asked if he was okay, he whispered, "I feel like I'm dying with her." His breaking point came when the doctors informed him of the truth. Even if Jenny survives, the road ahead will be long. Multiple surgeries, skin grafts, years of treatment. She may never fully recover. The words hit him like a knife. He collapsed into the chair, shaking his head, sobbing uncontrollably. Why her? Why Jenny? She doesn't deserve this. Take me instead. Please take me instead. His love for her was boundless, but so was his pain. For the first time, Sumit admitted to himself that he was afraid. Afraid of losing her, afraid of living without her, afraid of facing a world where Jenny's smile no longer existed. And in that hospital corridor, as machines kept Jenny alive inside, soon it reached his breaking point. But even in his despair, one thought kept him going. If she's fighting, then I have to fight too. Because no matter how broken he was, he knew one truth. His love for Jenny was the only thing stronger than the fire that destroyed everything else. The fire had taken Jenny to the edge of life and death, but it had also taken something else. Everything Sumit and Jenny had worked for, their money there. Security, their dream, was gone. The restaurant, once alive with laughter and warmth, was now nothing more than blackened ruins. The $1 million investment they had poured into every wall, every chair, every plate was reduced to ashes. Experts estimated the loss at nearly $1.5 million. Not just the initial investment, but the profits, the equipment, the brand value, the future they had built with their bare hands. And then came the cruel reality of insurance. Yes, they had a policy, but like so many tragic stories, the fine print held a cruel twist. The insurance company pointed out clauses, limitations, and disputes. Payments were delayed, questioned, minimized. Months of paperwork stood between them and any compensation.